Welcome back to the Glint Standard. Today, we're going to be talking about blue vases, why they're all over our office, and what they actually mean. All right, so blue vases, we have a ton of them.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. What does the blue vase actually mean?
It's a good reflection of my eyes. I just really like blue. I think it's really good. So that's really about it, and they're really pretty.
All right, thanks so much for joining us.
No, they're a pretty significant thing for me and for our business. They're an iconic reminder of effort, right? Some people have special slogans and sayings and motivational, things around to keep them driven and remind them where they are, so you don't get caught up in the weeds, right? Or you're having a hard day and it's what do I do? And just that kind of thing. Or you're having a great day and it's a reminder of this is why, right?
So what is that remind? Like, where did it come from? What does it remind you of?
So there is a book written in the 1920s called The Go-Getter, right? Peter Kine's the author. It's not a hard read. You're talking 30. I'll give you maybe 45 minutes to kind of get through it. As we discussed before, if you got the audio tape, it might be a 2-hour journey for you. But it depends on how quick you read and everything, right? But it's something that was written back then, and it's all about problem solving. To put it in a nutshell, right? And for us, that's what matters, right? It doesn't matter what your job is. You have to be able to problem solve. If you can't do it, you're an order taker. That's it. And it's easy to say I'm a problem solver. It's hard to do, and it's hard to deliver. Because when you get out of your comfort zone, how do you problem solve there, right? So the blue vase tells that journey of adapting, being able to overcome, doing whatever it takes because you understand how important the task ahead is, and you figure it out. And along the way, you have to make decisions. How extreme do I go? Have I gone far enough? Do I just leave this and then we'll just deal with it tomorrow because tomorrow's fine? I go, it's not. And in some regards, it's about setting the next person up in line to take the task into the best possible position so that they can be successful.
Right.
Because the assumption is when you've done all this work and you figured this out and it's hard, you hand it off, that person has to do that too until you get it to the finish line, right? And that's what you have to remember. So as soon as you stop putting all the effort in and stop trying to problem solve and make things easier moving forward, it's hard for the next person, which makes it hard for them to stay committed. It's harder for the next person. It's harder for them to stay committed. Next thing you know, you may not be delivering at the top notch of where you should be.
The Glint Standard.
The Glint Standard, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think without spoiling the book, because we would highly encourage, and if you look down in the description, I'll actually put a link there, so that way you guys can see that as well, and get to it. But without spoiling the book, I think it's my takeaway that I had. The biggest one is the wall, right? You're gonna hit a wall.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna hit multiple walls.
Yeah.
How do you get around them, through them, over them, under them, whatever that takes, right? And I think that's the important part and why we have them here at Glint. The blue vase is part of that. Having a blue vase at Glint is a very important thing. It's making a statement.
I don't know if it's necessarily about having it either, right? It's about knowing what it means.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. And
you'll find when we post jobs, right? A lot of times, if you know how to blue vase, you move to the top of the list. How often does that really happen? It's rare. I do get sometimes. I get the drawing of the face on one side, the left side, the drawing of the face on the right side, and it's a wine glass goblet, but it's kind of a vase too, but it's two faces. It's nothing to do with what we're talking about. But it starts to put you in a place of who are you dealing with? Are they going to be a good fit here? Tell that story. Now I'm going to tell you a little side story here too, which was really impressive. It's happened one time This has always been a thing, right? And we always say blue vase moves you to the front of the line. Usually nobody asks what that means, or if they do, they haven't really done any work and they want to be told everything. Opposite of what this is about, right? You do a little bit of effort, you can assume and start to get to the place of probably what we're talking about. I had one person so far showed up unannounced with a big blue vase, went through reception and said, I was told if I bring a blue vase in, I would get an interview. I was not in the office. Forgot to tell people that I'd put out an ad to find somebody. Got a phone call. There's a guy here. That's a blue vase. His name was Austin Thomas. A great guy. And I just started laughing. I go, that is hilarious. I go, I love that effort was put in. I said, put him on the phone. And I talked to him, interviewed him right there. Called him back. This isn't going to happen every time, so just don't think this is going to work for you. It might, but this is a very rare instance, a unique story. Called him back that afternoon, about 3 hours later, and we said, hey, I looked at your resume, I saw that, that's great, I think it's awesome that you did this. I've got a thinker now. I've got somebody that's got effort, wants to be good and wants to problem solve. Can he do it or not? I don't know. I don't care, right? I'm going to find that out. I hired him that afternoon over the phone, never met him. And the conversation, I think, was weirder for him than it was for me. So when I did call him back, I'm like, look, I know this is weird. Go, here's where our office is. And at the time, we were moving another office into the Dallas area, so we were over there. And he was at the Fort Worth one. And come in Monday morning. I said, you have a job. Worked out the pay, worked out everything over the phone. And if you come Monday, spend the day with us, we'll pay you for your time. If you don't like it, at the end of the day, you're free to go. There's no hard feelings, but it's a good fit, right? We need it to be a good fit. And we'll do the same thing. And it worked out, right? And you got hired on the spot. But that's truly trying to understand why that statement's in there.
Right.
And looking at anything you read, why are people saying the things they're saying, right? And trying to adapt that and learn it. So.
Yeah, and I think coming with a blue vase to a job interview, obviously with us, is going to have huge importance. I think what I have found as we've started to hire out a much larger team now is you're going to find blue vase type people,
Yes.
the go-getters, and they have no idea what it means, right? I think, and I'll touch on it real quick, it's almost a tangent, but basically there's certain industry leading people who don't even look at resumes. Instead, they just pick up the phone and they call anybody. And they talk to them, and they don't really care what the education is. They don't care what any of that is. It's more about the mentality of the person, right? Because you could be a terrible test taker, but still be a go-getter type person, right? And you're going to be a good fit because you're going to overcome the challenges that you face. And that's, I feel, the mentality that we have here. Obviously, education is important because of what we do and how we do it.
Education in what regard, though? Do you have to have a degree? It probably helps. At the end of the day, I don't care.
Right.
If you can do the job and you're good at the job, I don't care. But you have to have education in your craft as well. So if you're going to be a designer,
right,
your education could be, I don't have a degree for whatever reason, right? Hopefully it's a good reason. But you're really good at the core programs. You're a really good designer. And you need a little polishing, right? That's somebody I can get behind for sure.
Right.
Now, when you get here, can you continue that pathway? That's going to matter. But it's the same way with people getting out of school and getting their first job. There's a lot to learn that you don't learn in school. So for me, the pathway really isn't any different. It's all about, can you do the job? Do you have drive and ambition? Because economic backgrounds are very different for different people, right? And if you only look at, do you have a degree, you may miss out on some really, really great people because they just can't financially do it. Right? But they love it so much, they figured out a way to be good at it. A lot of times, they're better than most.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies that are hiring excellent people, they're doing it in almost a go-getter mentality where they're putting a challenge in front of somebody and going, I really don't care what your background, your education, any of that is, can you overcome the challenges that you will face within this position? And if they're able to, they move on to the next step kind of thing, right? So whether that be a reading and writing test, whether that be a submit your portfolio, whether that be a, those things.
Yeah, it's still important though to put parameters around it, right?
For sure.
If you're going to be a designer, you have to be good at design.
Right.
You have to know your core tools, right? If you're going to be an account executive, you have to be personable. You have to have a network behind you, right? You have to be able to have some of these core things. You can't just say, I've got nothing, and walk in and go, I'll work hard. It's just not enough.
I mean,
right?
I'm great with budgets, but I'm no CPA, right? So there are different industries as well that go-getter mentality is fantastic, but at the same time, you have to be qualified for your job, or nobody's going to trust you to do it.
Right,
So.
yeah, that's fair.
So I think that's good. I would say for Glint, we've pretty much established the type of mentality that we're looking for with that, and especially describing, without going too in depth of the book, that book really is, as you expressed, our motto around here, right? It's our sounding call, if you will, that we can always go back to.
Well, it's an easy way to at least start to set the standard when everybody's new. Because once you get in here, you'll start to feel the standard right away. We need to know if we believe you can get to that standard, right? And it's not so high and overarching that it can't be achieved, but it has a high requirement. So you look at the blue vases throughout the office, they're reminders, right? And after a while, you see them so often, they're just blue vases, right?
Right.
But every once in a while, you're going to look at that thing and remember, you know what? I'm not doing what I should be doing, or I've been killing it.
Yeah.
Right. And that can become that thing that it's unspoken. They don't speak to you, right? You see it and you're ready to go. Now, they've also been a cuss jar for us, right? Our agency at one point in time this stuff happens. Cussing way too much, very unprofessional. We'd gotten to that point. We're like, you know what? No more. We're not doing this. It's not a way to speak intelligently. It's not professional. We got to stop. I'm not saying we don't ever swear in the office, because it happens sometimes, right? And it's not always because you're angry, right? Just, I think that type of vernacular has become a little more popular again, and this is not the place for that. So we filled one of those up pretty quick, but we also get a point, it's like people would catch themselves, or you'd start, and on the way to the cuss jar, you're cussing again, because you got to put money in the cuss jar. So some of the blue vases have money in them, and it's a reminder of where we were and who we are, and we're normal, right? And that's important to remember. You're not trying to run anything perfect. You're trying to just keep everything as consistent as you can. Right.
Well, and I will say, outside of Glint, right, there's, different environments, different places. There may not be a blue vase, but every place will respect people. You will get more opportunity. The more that you are able to go that extra mile, or overcome those challenges, or push through those barriers, right? The more won't quit mentality, right? And maybe that's the motto there. Innovate or die, right, is another one that I know I've seen everywhere.
Yeah, they're slogans, right? That works for some people. They don't work for me, right? I just don't buy into them. They're not for me, but for a lot of people they are, and that's great. At the end of the day, whatever you need to remind you that if there's no one around to ask, or no one else to do for you, what do you do?
So I've always defined that as character. Character is who you really are when no one else is around. That's your character. Because it's at the heart of who you don't have anybody to impress, anybody to report to at that point to really say. So who you act like when you are all by yourself, that is your character.
It's also your brand, if you want to look at it that way, right?
That's important.
Why are you doing the things you do? Why do you interact with people the way you do? How do you want to be perceived? It starts to get off of being by yourself,
right?
But it's all part of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Wanted to give some clarity, if you've been to our office, on what all the blue vases really are.
It's the eyes.
It's the eyes.
Pulls the eyes out.
It's totally the eyes. But as we said, we'll leave a comment down below in the description of where you guys can actually find the Go-Getter book that we've described, and would love to have a blue vase if you feel like you're a blue vaser as well in our office. And if you have any questions, any comments, or just want to share your thoughts on this video, or maybe something that you guys have that's quirky in your office, just leave a comment below. Love to hear from you.
I would love to hear what other people do and what the quirky things are in your office. I think that'd be really cool.
Right. If it's really embarrassing, you can always email us, agency@theglintstandard.com. No guarantees that it won't show up in a later episode, but we would love to hear about it as well. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.